One's a piece of Aussie motorsport history. The other, the fastest supercar on the mountain in 2024. Today I'm pitting the original Bathurst winner from 1963 against the reigning Bathurst champions car. It's a time warp showdown at Mount Panorama, and the goal? See how many laps I can get in the old Cortina before I'm caught and lapped by the new gen beast. The first official Bathurst took place in 1963, then called the Armstrong 500. That year, the Ford Cortina GT, driven by legends Bob Jane and Harry Firth, claimed victory. It had just 78 kilowatts of power, 4 gears, drum brakes and a basic steel body, but it was enough to beat the field on consistency and reliability. Fast forward to 2024 and the game has completely changed. Brodie, Kostecki and Todd Hazelwood took the checkered flag in the latest Gen 3 supercar, a purpose-built racing machine with over 600 horsepower, sequential gearbox, aerodynamic wings, carbon fibre chassis and cutting-edge electronics. It's the pinnacle of Australian motorsport technology. The Cortina is simplicity on wheels, rear-wheel drive, 4-speed manual, basic suspension and no aero to speak of. But it was durable, which made all the difference in endurance racing back then. Meanwhile, Brodie Kostecki's Camaro is a purpose-built weapon. Every nut, every sensor, every aerodynamic surface is designed for precision and pace. The contrast between these two cars couldn't be any more extreme. Mount Panorama has changed too. The layout's mostly the same, but it's been transformed from a dusty mountain road into a world-class racetrack. In the 60s, there were no concrete walls, no proper pit facilities, and no chase section. It was raw. Today, the track is faster, safer, but just as brutal. The risk might be more managed, but the mountain is still unforgiving. So here's how the race will go down. I'm taking the wheel of the Cortina and will push it for as many laps as I can around Mount Panorama. Right alongside me at the start will be the 2024 Gen 3 Camaro. The goal? See how long I can keep pace before the modern supercar catches me and puts me a lap down. This isn't just a race, it's a 6-decade showdown between classic endurance racing and cutting-edge technology. But first, let's take a look at each of the cars. Alright, here we are guys in pit lane in our Ford Cortina. We're about to head out on track and do a quick sighting lap or two just to get a bit of a feel for this car before we go out and go head to head against the supercar. See how it goes. A little bit of wheel spin as we take off out of the pit lane. But don't be fooled. We're not about to get thrown into the seat with sheer pace out of this car. It is not going to be very fast. Of course, back in 1963, there was less concern about making the car be a bullet and more concern about making it be reliable. To finish first. First, you must finish when you're endurance racing, and a 500-mile race around Bathurst is a long way. Realistically, this car was pretty lightweight. Not exceptionally powerful, but fairly lightweight, which meant that it was very competitive in racing. The car itself was only around about 74, 75 horsepower, 55 kilowatts, and it was 1500cc inline 4. So pretty primitive, and you can just feel it bogging as we come out of the corner here and try and climb the mountain. The gearing between second and third gear is particularly long. The gap is big and we really can't use second gear climbing the mountain. We've got to stay in third. Got no adjustment in the diff or rear end ratios or anything like that, gear ratios, so it's fully production spec. So that was just part of the deal. Had to sacrifice because this is only a 4-speed H-pattern manual gearbox. But this car was extremely successful in the early to mid 1960s at Bathurst. Of course, 1963 was the first year that the Armstrong 500 raced in Bathurst at Mount Panorama. The race, in its 4th year, a lot of people don't realise that there were 3 iterations of the Armstrong 500 at Phillip Island prior to coming to Bathurst. And Harry Firth and Bob Jane actually won in 1961 and 1962 before it even came to Bathurst. So 1963, when they went on to win here in a Cortina for the first time in a Cortina, actually three-peated as outright winners. But in those days, outright winners weren't really awarded anything. They weren't recognised as outright winners. It was really about class racing because this was a class-based race. This car exists in Class C. For those that don't know the way class systems work, at the time it was based essentially on cost. How much these cars would cost to buy off the production line straight out of the showroom floor. And so Class A were for the cheapest cars that you could buy. I think like Volkswagens and cars like that. Class B was Austin's, Morris's, cars like that. Class C was Ford Cortina. And really the EH Holden. This was the first race where Holden and Ford rivalry began. Class C was essentially those two cars fighting it out for honours. And in 1963, the Cortina went on to win by approximately a lap over the first Holden. So that Holden versus Ford rivalry kicking off from a very, very early date here at Bathurst. And Class D was reserved for the most expensive cars, the luxury cars, the bigger cars, the big Fords. But Valiants, Dolomites, cars like that were more prominent in the big, heavy, more powerful cars, but much heavier cars, and therefore more expensive cars as well. So they were in Class D. So it was a Class C car here that went on to win. And the Cortina, like I said, was very successful in the early days of Bathurst. It actually won 1963 and 64 in this Mark I variation of the car. And then again in 1965, the Mark II Cortina was the winner at Bathurst in the Armstrong 500 before the Austin Mini, or sorry, the Mini Cooper, not the Austin Mini, the Mini Cooper went on to win in 1966. But the Lotus was a very, very competitive car. Harry Firth was the man in charge when dealing with the Ford Motor Company. At the time, he was in charge of organising, building, delivering these cars for himself to race essentially at the time. But the homologation rules, meaning that I think it was 100 needed to be produced in Australia at the time for them to be eligible, and he was largely involved with that. But Colin Chapman was also heavily involved with the development of these cars. For those that don't know, the man behind Lotus, and a brilliant mind of F1 and engineering from those 60s, 70s and 80s. And obviously the Lotus Cortina, which a lot of people may be familiar with, another extremely successful car, more so in European racing. But it was the same car, just with a Lotus badge and some Lotus engineering in the background, particularly around the way the motor was built and developed. So there were great minds behind this car, and it was very, very successful. As we're going to go pull back into the pit lane here, and I'm going to go back out and just do a quick lap or two again in the new supercar to give us a bit of a comparison. And it's going to be a bit of a culture shock when I go and strap back into that car right after this. Alright, so here we are in pit lane in Brodie, Kostecki and Todd Hazelwood's Bathurst 1000 winning Gen 3 Chevy Camaro. We're about to head out on track, and this car is going to be night and day different to what we've just experienced with the Cortina. 6-speed sequential gearbox to start with, but it's the sheer power and performance. 3.5 seconds to 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, as opposed, in stark contrast to the Cortina, which was 13.5 to 14 seconds 0 to 100 speed. Not to mention the top speed difference, which I already outlined before. 300 kilometers an hour or thereabouts in this car, and in Bathurst spec. to try and not overshoot any of the corners. They're so much louder as well. And the outright performance difference is staggering. It's hard to believe how far we've come in 6 decades, but that is the technological advancement that we've made. It's so, so different. So we come down the hill, down through the gears, dipper, beautiful. Forest elbow, keep it tight in and we're good. And then back up to speed, all the way up there through the gears to 300 kilometers per hour. This is a 5.7 litre pushrod V8, pushing out around about 600 horsepower. Very, very fine-tuned. As we get all the way to about 290, 300 kilometers an hour. Bit of a brake lock there. So try and get the car to stop. Lotus, or Ford Cortina, has basically no downforce considerations. But this car, with all of the advancements that it has around about 140 kilos of downforce at 200 kilometers an hour. And that's at a speed that the Ford Cortina can't even reach. And don't forget as well that the Gen 3 Supercar is considerably less downforce than the Gen 2 Supercar, which this superseded only a couple of years ago. Run right out to the exit of turn 2. Oh. Slight rub on the wall on the inside at the cutting. And instead of being a nice casual meander across the top of the mountain and struggling to have the power to get up the hill in the Cortina, our eyeballs are just about touching the windshield as we fly across the top in this car. Back down the hill again. The contrast is just staggering. And it does make me wonder, legitimately, will the Cortina be able to complete 1 lap before this car completes 2? Will we even be able to complete 1 lap in that car before we get lapped? It's incredible to even think about it, but maybe. There's our big brake lock down here from the previous lap. Well, that's what we're faced with, guys. This is the challenge. Let's put it into practical effect and see what happens when we put these 2 cars together on the track. Alright, here we go, we're on the grid. 1963 Ford Cortina, 2024 Chevrolet Camaro Supercar. How many laps can a 1960s family sedan last before it gets lapped by a contemporary supercar? Let's see. Got our map up in the top corner to keep track of where we're at relative to Brodie Kostecki. We're away. Look at him go. Disappeared off into the distance. Now what's really important here is that we absolutely hit our marks and get the most out of this thing. As he disappears up Mountain Straight into the distance. These cars at the time, the way that they were raced was really about keeping momentum. They didn't have the outright power, So maximising your mid-corner speed and flowing the cars as much as you could was the way that they were driven. And it was also more sympathetic on the running gear to do it that way. Make sure we hit the apexes. Don't overslow the car by sliding, by braking too late and understeering into the corner and washing off speed. There's very little threat of oversteer on the corner exit, so we don't need to worry too much about that. It's really just about making sure that we get to the turns. Here we go, making our way up the hill, and you can see on the map already that Kostecki's got a massive gap as he comes down through the S's already. But based on this, I think we're a good chance to at least get one lap in the book. I don't like our chances of getting two, but we might at least make it one lap before we get past or caught. Across Skyline and McPhillamy. Just a little bit too much understeer there. Had to get out of the throttle. Let's not overdrive it. Down to third gear. Get up on the curb. Maximise our corners. This is the tricky part. It's easy to drive it too fast. Oh, perfect. That was perfect. Right out to the wall. Of course, you'd never drive them this hard back in the day because you needed some mechanical sympathy to get the cars to the finish. That's beautiful run across the top though. That's perfect. And we start Conrod straight while Brodie Kostecki finishes it. So that's the gap. Not even one lap in and he's already got the entire length of Conrod straight on us. And this is what's really going to hurt. It's that straight line speed deficit that we've got as we max out at right on 100 miles per hour. And I think that the wind direction might have changed a little bit because we're slightly slower here than we even were before. Right on 100 miles an hour, 161 Ks as we head down into the chase. Of course, the chase wasn't here in 1963. This part of the track didn't exist. That was introduced in 1987 to get the track up to safety standards. But we are going to make it around one lap. Big heel toe downshift. Hit our mark. That's beautiful through there. We've done a good lap. That's a good lap. And we have got around about half a lap. Are we going to be able to get back around? I don't know that we will. A little bit aggressive at turn one, but we did carry good speed. Kostecki's coming down the hill at the minute. He's just about at Forest Elbow. I don't think we're going to get around again. As I'm losing my voice. That's how exciting this is. How far can we get? Can we get half the way around? Let's see. There's the Erebus Camaro thunders down Conrod Straight, 300 Ks an hour. It's painful coming up the hill. We're almost maxed out in third gear. But second gear's too short here to come back down. We've got to stay third. Carry as much momentum as we can up the hill. As Kostecki just crosses the line to finish his second lap. I think we're going to get to Conrod, but that's about it. So we just get into the limiter just a little bit there. You wouldn't rev these cars that hard. The engine wouldn't make 500 miles. If you drove it that hard, you'd short shift, but we're only doing 2 laps. Okay, down the hill we go. Tail of the cars wandering around. Perfect line again. Right out to the fence. And again. Oh, that's beautiful line across the top again. There's the gap. Can we get to the end of the lap? It's going to be close. Closer than I thought it would be. Kostecki's across Skyline right now. So we frustratingly sit at 160 kilometres an hour all the way down the straight. Kostecki's reaching Forest Elbow. And he's about to point directly at us. Into the chase. It's going to be close. Deep as a dare. It's going to be close. I think we're going to get there. Here we go. Early brakes for the final corner, so as to not overshoot it. And we make it. We get 2 laps in. So you make the corner. Hell corner. And up the straight we go. I can see him coming. Blue flags. Here he goes. Whoa! Absolutely flies past. Wow. So we did. We got 2 laps. I didn't think we would. The little Cortina. It did a good job. Well, that's it, and if you loved this throwback meets modern showdown, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments what era of supercars at Bathurst has been your favourite over the years. Also, if you really enjoyed the video, let me know in the comments below, what era should I do this in next? What car would you like to see me put on a comparison in another video down the track? But that's it for this video, guys. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Holbo88, twitch.tv/Holbo88. Check out the live streams. Don't forget the Discord channel. Link is in the description below. That's it for this video. We'll see you guys in the next one.